Hi there, and welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today I'm going to show you how to make a very easy 360 meal using some boneless country style pork ribs, some russet potatoes. We're also going to add some vegetables in a little bit later, but they are still in the freezer because you want them to be frozen until the time we put them into the pot. And we're gonna do this with a Carolina style barbecue sauce. Now this recipe is one that Jeff whipped up years ago, and it's one of his absolute favorites, and it goes perfectly with these pork ribs. So we're gonna get the sauce made first, and I'm gonna use the Ninja Foodi Hot Cold blender to do this, but you don't have to have the blender. You could use the Ninja Foodi, the inner pot. You could use a little pot on the stove. However you wanna do it, it's gonna be fine. It's a really quick and easy and delicious barbecue sauce. So the first thing I'm gonna add into the blender is 1/3 of a cup of apple cider vinegar. And we're gonna pour that in. Whenever I'm using the blender for anything that's gonna become like a thicker sauce, I always like to put the thin liquids down first. It seems to do a better job when you do it that way. Then I have 1 tablespoon of just plain water. We're gonna add that in. And now for the mustard. This is a mustard-based sauce. We're gonna put in 1/3 of just plain yellow mustard. A 1/4 cup of white sugar. 1½ tablespoons of brown sugar. 1 teaspoon of soy sauce, and then our spice blend, which is 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt fine grind, 1/2 teaspoon of regular black table pepper, 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. Of course, you can always omit that if you don't want your sauce to be spicy, and then 1 tablespoon of chili powder, and that is it. We're gonna add that into the blender. Right, you want to get your lid on and secured, and then we will turn the blender on. And we're going to go to cook, and I'm going to go to medium heat. But what I'm going to do first is go ahead and pulse a couple times just to mix everything up. And that's it. And now we will just let this cook on medium for about 15 minutes or so, and then we will turn it off, or we can turn it to the low and keep it warm if you prefer a warm barbecue sauce. But I usually turn it off and then pour it out of the blender and let it sit at room temperature until I'm ready to sauce up the ribs. All right, now for the ribs. So these are boneless country style pork ribs. Now you can also get them with the bone in. The recipe would work exactly the same, but we picked up these. They were so delicious when I tested this recipe. I really like the way the boneless works out. So if you can find them, get those. All right, so now let's go over our spice blend that we're gonna rub onto our pork ribs. What I have here is 1 tablespoon of salt, that's sea salt, fine grind. I have 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 1 tablespoon of cumin, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 1/2 tablespoon of cayenne, 2 tablespoons of paprika, and 1/2 tablespoon of celery salt. And this rub is absolutely delicious, so I do hope you give it a try. All right, so let's go ahead and dump all that into a little bit bigger bowl so I can mix it up really well. And then we're gonna get it rubbed on to the spare ribs. And if you don't want your rub to be spicy, you can omit that cayenne pepper, or you can decrease the amount, or if you like it really spicy, you can increase it. I also use smoked paprika instead of regular paprika in this recipe, but both will work just fine. So don't worry about that. Whatever you have is perfectly fine. I just thought, since we're not smoking these, because we can't do that in the Ninja Foodi, that I would add a little bit of smoked flavor and use smoked paprika. All right, so I'm just gonna take some out here. Because I'm not gonna use it all, I don't wanna go, I don't wanna dig in there with my hands and then rub this all over. So, because we're not gonna use it all. So rub it all over the meat. And you want to do this before you pressure cook, which is something that I see people ask about a lot, is why would you put the dry spices on before you pressure cook when you're going to be in this moist cooking environment? Well, it does still stay on the meat, believe it or not. I do this with ribs, and I've done it with the pork and other types of meat like brisket before. So really, you do want to season before you go under pressure. We can also season afterwards before we air crisp if we need to. I haven't needed to though. Usually I'll just put the sauce on and do a little bit of air crisping at the end. So probably I will end up using about half of this. So like I said, if you just want enough just for this recipe and you don't want to store any extra, cut it all down in half and you will be fine. It smells so good. I love the seasoning rub. This is not one we used at the restaurant. This is one that Jeff sort of came up with because he likes the Carolina style. He likes the vinegar, the mustard base types of sauces more than I do. I'm more the sweet and spicy Kansas City style barbecue. All right. Now, you can also do this ahead of time, so rub them and then put them in the refrigerator overnight, and that really does help, get that seasoning really in there, but it's not necessary. I haven't done it during the testing, and it's been delicious. All right, so I'm gonna clean up a little bit, then we're gonna get our 360 meal into the Ninja Foodi to cook. It's gonna go under pressure for 22 minutes. All right, now one of the best things about this 360 meal is, guess what? You don't need any accessories except what came with the Ninja Foodi. So that's kind of exciting because I know I'm always cooking with a bunch of different accessories, and then it's hard if you don't have them or can't find them. But the only thing we're gonna use is the basket for this. So I have the basket already in, the diffuser legs are on. So for the thin liquid, I'm gonna use beer. I'm gonna use 8 ounces of beer. Any kind is fine. If you like to drink it, it's gonna be fine in this recipe. But you don't have to use any beer either. You could use water, you could use chicken stock, beef stock, whatever you want is perfectly fine. But I'm gonna use 8 ounces of beer, and that's gonna be our thin liquid. All right, so now to get the ribs in the basket. So what I'm gonna do here is put them along the side. We wanna leave the center open because we need to put the potatoes in there. So I'm gonna put that like that. Sort of stagger them around here. All right, that looks good. Okay, so let me clean my cutting board, and then I'm gonna show you how to get the vegetables ready to go in and go under pressure, because we can't just dump them in like they are. They're gonna overcook. So we need to put them into some foil packets so that they do not get too mushy. All right, so I'm gonna be using some aluminum foil in this recipe. I know a lot of people do not like to use it in their cooking. I totally understand that. Then this recipe probably isn't going to be for you, because I cannot figure out another way to protect the vegetables and the potatoes from overcooking in the 22 minutes of pressure cook time. The potatoes will probably be okay, but the vegetables, so if you wanted to make this and skip the foil, you would want to steam your vegetables separately because they are going to overcook if they're not wrapped in the foil. All right, so what I do for this is I take just a little bit of the foil, one of the potatoes, put a little bit of olive oil on it, and a little bit of salt, and then I just wrap it up. And we're gonna fit those in here. I'm gonna do that for all 4 of them. These are russet potatoes. I guess I should have said that. You could probably use any type of potato though that you like, just as long as they're small because they all need to fit in there. This is a dinner for 4. All right, there we go. Now we need to get our vegetables into a packet. For the vegetables, you need to do this 3 times. Take about that much. You want 3 layers of foil. Now, I'm not using the heavy duty. So if you had heavy duty aluminum foil, you could probably get away with just 2 layers. But what I found is the 3 layers really protected all the vegetables and they did not overcook, believe it or not. It was incredible. I was so happy. So what I have here is 4 cups of vegetables. You don't have to use that many. You could use more if you wanted. As long as they're gonna fit, you can use them. And I used a Normandy blend frozen vegetables that has nice big chunks. This would not work as well with smaller pieces of vegetables. So like even string beans, I think might have a hard time. Although if you wanted to use fresh string beans, I think you could do that with this recipe without any issue, honestly. Now you could do 1 or 2 things. And I've done it both ways, so it's really up to you. You could add in some oil or add in butter. You could use salt. You could use some of the seasoning rub that we used on the pork. That's delicious. For now, I'm just gonna keep it very, very simple. I'm gonna put some butter in here and a little bit of salt. You can always salt after the fact, so you don't even have to do any of this. You can just wrap your vegetables up. Then I take them. And I'm doing 1 at a time, and I'll tell you why. Just in case there's a spot that isn't completely covered, I can flip this over. And you can see, I want it to be sort of flat and round. I'm trying to gauge, so it's gonna be about the size of the basket, so it sits right on top, so that we can get our pressure lid on and not have any issues. Make sure that everything is nice and tightly sealed. All right, there we go. Now we can set this right on top. Now remember, it is perfectly fine if it is above the pot a little bit. As long as we aren't impeding the back end here, we're gonna be fine. The pressure lid is going to fit on just fine and come to pressure just fine. And it looks like we are good to go here. So we're gonna put the pressure lid on. Now I'm using the 6.5 quart, so if you had the 8 quart and we're gonna do this recipe, you're gonna have more room, obviously, than I do. All right, we're gonna go to the seal position, turn the Ninja Foodi on, go to pressure, high is what we want, and we wanna take it for 22 minutes. And go ahead and hit the start button. We're gonna pressure cook on high for 22 minutes, and then we're gonna do a 5-minute natural release. That's all you need with these ribs. And then we will get the ribs basted with the barbecue sauce, and we will air fry them for a few minutes. All right, so it took the pot about 11 minutes for the red pin in the back to pop up, and then another few minutes for the countdown to start. So the total time to pressure until the countdown started was about 16 minutes. Then we pressure cooked for 22 minutes on high. We did a 5-minute natural release, and now I'm going to manually release the remaining pressure. All right, so the red pin has depressed. That means we can open up the lid. Do that away from you because it is a steamy pot right now. Then we can lift out our vegetables. Put those over here. Lift out our potatoes. Oh, those pork ribs look good. And you can see all the seasoning stayed right where it needed to be. So we're gonna take all that out. Now I'm gonna change this around a little bit and put them in a single layer. If they break up, do not worry about that at all. So I'm just gonna get these into this basket. You don't even need to dump the liquid. There's not enough there to worry about. So I'm just gonna baste these with some barbecue sauce. So I'm gonna pour some of this barbecue sauce, and it has really thickened up nicely. It's been sitting here for, I guess, about 30 minutes. And I'm pouring this in because I'm gonna keep going back and forth. And even though the ribs are completely cooked, we're gonna serve that on the side for people who want, extra sauce. So I just like to pour some in here. And we're gonna baste it on. Oh, they smell so good. All right, that looks good. Now let's go ahead and use the air crisping function. Tender crisp is how Ninja Foodi calls it. We're gonna go ahead and go up to the 400. And we don't need to do 20 minutes. 5 minutes should be just fine. All right, so while those are air crisping, what we can do is either open up our potatoes and start to put some butter and salt on them, or we could even take the ribs out when they're done and put these in to get a little crisp on the skin if we wanted to. I'm not gonna worry about that though. What I do wanna check is just to see how our vegetables fared. Because that's the trickiest part, honestly. It's just getting these completely done to where they are, until they are not overdone. Now I'll wrap these back up to keep them hot until we're ready, but oh nope, they look good. They look good. One thing I did not mention in the very beginning is that I also used some carrots that are just raw carrots, and I cut them in like thirds, and I used 2 carrots in here along with the broccoli and the cauliflower, just because even though this mix comes with carrots, I'm not a huge fan of the ones that are in the mix, so I added some extra carrots, but it looks absolutely beautiful. This is when you would want to add more butter if you wanted, add some salt, some pepper, or even some of that rub. But I'm not gonna use anything because we have a little bit of butter on there already, and that's gonna be just fine for me. I'm gonna close those up. They look perfect, so they are not overcooked, which is amazing considering how long they went under pressure for. And that is because they were protected in the 3 layers of foil. And then the potatoes. They look great too. They really do. They're hot. All right, they're perfect. So now, if you were serving this for dinner, obviously I would keep these wrapped until you're just about to plate the ribs up. But I'm gonna go ahead and get them unwrapped now so I can start putting them on the plate so you can see how everything looks. If you wanted to serve it, all together for a family dinner, it looks really pretty. The other thing you could do with these potatoes is chop them up a little bit, and you could roast them after the ribs are done. That would be great too. So they're gonna be nice and soft, but they're not like coming apart. You know how sometimes when you overcook potatoes, they start to split? Well, that didn't happen because we protected them a little bit with our foil. And as soon as I can figure out what the alternative to foil is, trust me, I will let you guys know. All right, looks good. Very, very good. Now you could also coat them with a little butter if you wanted. You could even mash them up. I mean, you can do anything with them right now. Any kind of preparation you want. Now I'm gonna go ahead. I think we're getting down to the last little minute here. So I'm gonna go ahead and plate up the vegetables. Or you could put them in a bowl if you prefer. All right. Looks great. So excited. All right, let's take a peek. We've got 20 seconds left. Oh my gosh, they look amazing. Now you could baste them again. You could go longer. It would be fine, but I don't think they need to. They look gorgeous. So this is such an easy dinner to put together. I absolutely love it. And if you were doing low carb, forget the potatoes, double up on the vegetables, pick something else besides the potatoes. That's the beauty of a 360 meal, is you don't have to use all the components, but you're still gonna be able to get the meal cooked the way that you want. You could also substitute the sugar that's in the barbecue sauce for a sugar substitute, and that would be fine. All right, we are done. Now I'm gonna put these beauties right on the plate. Oh, I love that. They're gonna be so tender and so delicious. I can tell they are perfectly cooked. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. In fact, that one's so well cooked, it's kind of starting to fall apart, but that's okay. Look at that. Dinner for 4, done. Less than an hour, start to finish, everything cooked in the Ninja Foodi, and no extra accessories. I think this is definitely a win. All right, so what I'm gonna do is just put a little bit of this barbecue sauce on the top here. Oh, wow. Isn't that gorgeous? Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Oh, I'm so excited. All right. Now, of course, I'm going to make a plate and give it a taste. All right, so my final little touch before I would serve this would be to just brush the skin of the potato just a little bit with oil, or butter would be delicious. And then put just a little bit of a coarse sea salt on top. Totally optional, but number one, I think it's so beautiful to serve it that way. I just love the way it looks, and it'll give you a little bit of crunch when you eat your potato, in case you didn't want to air crisp them like I didn't do. Okay, so let's get to plating and tasting our delicious pork country rib 360 meal. We'll take the potato and a little piece of the pork. You see it just pulls right off there. It's so tender. Oh my gosh. Love that. Gonna get a carrot, piece of cauliflower, and a piece of broccoli. Now, I usually like my vegetables a little bit on the firmer side, but you know, when we do it this way, they are a little softer than I would prefer ordinarily, but I found them to be delicious, so I think you're gonna enjoy them as well. All right, now a little bit more of that sauce because I just love it. Perfect. All right, so here we go. All right, so let's taste the carrot first. It looks really good. Okay, so this is definitely not overdone. Perfect texture. Wow, that's so delicious. I know that seems crazy. I'm so excited over a carrot, but I like a carrot to be perfectly cooked. Not too mushy, not too hard. There's just this flavor that comes out when they're perfectly cooked, and these are perfectly cooked. All right, the frozen cauliflower. Okay, that's really good too. Now, I'm a little bit surprised about that. The last time I tested this recipe, the cauliflower was a little bit softer, but it was so good. The broccoli, a little softer than the cauliflower, but still delicious. Honestly delicious. Okay, potato. This is perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. Like, I can tell it is not mushy or overcooked. It is perfectly cooked. Oh, wow. With that little bit of salt on the outside and the olive oil, you don't even need butter. That is really good. Okay, the star of the show. The pork ribs. Let's Let's get here. They're perfectly cooked, I can tell. Now, if you wanted yours more fall apart, you could go a little bit longer, but don't go too much longer, because if you go too much longer, you're gonna end up overcooking everything else. So maybe 23, 24 minutes would be about it. Wow. Oh my goodness. You cannot beat the flavor of these. I mean, I love pork spare ribs. I like baby back ribs. I like the St. Louis cut ribs. But there's something about these country style pork ribs that are just so fantastic and so easy to cook. Oh, I absolutely love them. I hope you enjoy this 360 meal. Remember, you can change it up, double the vegetables. Forget the vegetables, double the potatoes. You could double the meat, but then you're gonna run out of room for some other stuff. But if you wanted to make just a whole pot of the barbecue pork ribs, you could do that. You could still use the same timing here. So if you just wanted to do 6 pounds instead of 3 pounds, because that's what I have here, about 3 pounds of the pork country style ribs, you could do 6 pounds in here, same cook time, same technique. You just wouldn't have enough room to add all the other stuff unless you have the 8-quart, and you might be able to add in a few potatoes and a few vegetables. I'm so excited about these 360 meals. I love creating the recipes for them. They are a little challenging, which I love, and I love the flavor combinations that I can come up with. So I'm definitely gonna keep doing this for you guys. I know you're asking for them, and I'm gonna keep doing different variations of 360 meals. If you have an idea, you can certainly leave me a comment and let me know what 3 ingredients would you like to see put together in the Ninja Foodi for a 360 meal.